This is a documentary about Bobby Mackey's country music world, electronic voice phenomenon, and other ITC experiments that I've conducted at Bobby Mackey's country music world. We're also going to take a little bit of a dive into some of the people that are involved with the location and its bizarre history. So I had my friend Drew, the Destroyer Bowman, check out a part of this documentary really early on in its development. And one of the things that he said was, "Hey man, what the fuck is an EVP?" So I guess I had taken it for granted in the early part of the production that everyone knew or would know what an EVP was. So I just kind of dove into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to explain what an EVP is and how it works potentially, and how you record those types of things. So we'll just do a little bit of background on electronic voice phenomenon. So electronic voice phenomenon, or EVP, are sounds found on electronic recordings that are interpreted as spirit voices that have been either unintentionally recorded or intentionally requested and recorded. There's a particular parapsychologist, Konstantinos Radiv, who popularized the idea in the 1970s. He described EVP as typically brief, usually the length of a word or short phrase. Enthusiasts consider EVP to be a form of paranormal phenomenon often found in recordings with static or other background noise. Scientists regard EVP as a form of auditory pareidolia, interpreting random sounds as voices in one's own language, and a pseudoscience promulgated by popular culture. Prosaic explanations to EVP include apophenia, perceiving patterns and random information, equipment artifacts, and hoaxes. So, being a pro spirit communication person, I still think it's very important to look at these concepts from a scientific as a point of view as you can. So it's important to apply the scientific method to all of your paranormal experiments. Generally, science regards this as not really science, as a pseudoscience, and obviously what they said was it's just products of our imagination, products of our mind just trying to make sense out of patterns, products of our mind looking for patterns where there aren't any. So that's not really, that doesn't really hold up when you're in a room or in a place and you're sitting there by yourself and you ask a question and you get a response out of nowhere that's clear. So that doesn't really make a lot of sense when that happens. So you really have to test that. And a lot of the ways that I have captured EVP is through voice recordings. That obviously electronic voice phenomena. But I've used magnetic tape, I've used digital recorders, I've caught things on video cameras that I didn't catch on the magnetic recorders that I was using, on the digital recorders that I was using. That's something that happens all the time when people are investigating, is they'll have a spot where they'll pick up a voice on a video, but they won't pick it up on the recorder or vis-a-vis or what have you. And a lot of the time, how it works, or how it's proposed to work, is that these spirits that you're trying to communicate use the electricity, the batteries, the energy, and the static and the airwaves to communicate, by being able to manipulate them with their own spiritual potential. Like our own electromagnetic energy that doesn't dissipate when we pass away. Generally, there's still that energy that's never destroyed. So that's kind of how I interpret this. The evidence that I show at Bobby Mackey's, or that we listen to, is truly bone chilling. There's no real explanation for that. And I have caught a few really important EVPs, in my opinion, that are very important to me, that really substantiate what is really going on as far as the potential for spirit communication.
Area that had all burned down at that time. Now, when George Remus had it, he owned one of the distilleries over there. They had a tunnel that went underneath this road from our building here to the distillery. In 1968, when the feds came in and raided the Latin quarters for the final time, they filled that in. They also filled in the well so that we could use that tunnel anymore to run liquor or alcohol. Now, this area right here is where that great big carriage house used to sit burnt down. We had a witness that had been here back in the day that was a kid at the time that said he saw a man actually get shot who was standing in the driveway right here right back of it. He said that when he got shot, he was 20 feet back if that bullet hit him. It was not like what you see in the movies at all.
So this was the structure that caught on fire in like 1978 or something?
Out here was.
Yeah.
Right, it's gone, it doesn't exist. Now if you're lucky enough to catch a train parked here, you should take pictures, because a lot of times we get full body apparitions of men coming from the railroad cars to the club. A lot of times they are neon green outlined or neon white outlined. I just noticed a little while ago something new for me, but apparently they used to have another entrance that came up in here because there was a doorbell and a window.
Mostly it's because it's fucking haunted, that's why. That's why.
So many things have happened at this location that it's undoubtedly one of the most haunted places that I've ever investigated. And I've really just become kind of obsessed with the place. And I've visited it on multiple occasions, conducted at least 4 full investigations there. And I feel like it's given me a specific kind of insight into the property, into the history, into the kind of feelings of the environment. I mean, you really only have to go there to experience it. Most of the time, people who travel to the location end up having some type of experience, or someone that they're with does. There's a lot of people who have claimed to have brought things home with them. By things, I mean spirits, ghosts, demons. I mean, after all, there is supposed to be a portal to hell in the basement. There's been quite a bit of attention given to the basement at Bobby Mackey's. The original caretaker of the property, Carl Lawson, who's now deceased, claimed to have had some very intense paranormal, spiritual kind of experiences there in the basement in particular. He claimed that there was a haunting apparition that was telling him that he needed to find something in the basement, that there was something there that he needed to uncover. And as it turns out, he started tearing up the floor, and he found a well. And he claimed to have found a diary that kind of was destroyed in a paranormal way. So there wasn't really any proof that there was a diary. But he did uncover the well, and unfortunately succumbed to what many people believe was a terrible possession caused by living in Bobby Mackey's country music world, spending so much time there, and just becoming generally obsessed with the property himself. Here's a little bit of that footage from the exorcism.
Because he knows that I've got something in me that's greater than him. And I've got something in me that's greater than you, Charlie. You understand that? You understand that? Huh? Oh, no. No.
Carl's fighting.
No.
That silly little son of a bitch.
You listen to me.
That silly little son of a bitchy Carl
No.
is fighting me.
Carl is not that. Carl's a good person. Now, it's time for you to leave.
I try to keep him away. From church.
Well,
Ever since he was a little kid, all he wanted to do was go to school and pray. That's all he ever wanted to do. But I got him riding around here on his bicycle one day, and he didn't know what happened to him when he found these $5 in back.
I know he didn't know what happened to him, but you did. And he entertained you, and now then you're trying to take him over, and you're trying to rule his life, and I'm here to put a stop to it. You understand that? You understand that, Charlie?
Carl's so fucking stupid.
You understand that, Charlie?
He ain't.
You quit telling Carl he's stupid. You hear me? You understand me?
Okay.
Now I'm telling you, it's time for you to leave.
Now, whether or not you believe in demons, demonic possession, spiritual obsession, or possession or anything like that, Carl definitely believed that he was possessed. The person who was doing the exorcism believed that he was possessed, and a lot of other people do as well. As it turns out, Carl had spent a lot of time in his life around the property before he was actually working for Bobby Mackey. You can kind of catch that when he's talking about when he was riding around there when he was a kid, and that this Charlie character who seems to be possessing him caught him one day. He's talking about finding $5 and he didn't know what happened to him. So it seems that something happened to Carl Lawson that day that impacted him in a pretty terrible way. Spirit communication plays a pretty big role in paranormal investigation. Over time, the techniques that are used to communicate with spirits have changed, but it's basically the same idea. It really is just a matter of the type of devices you use or mediums, either an actual medium or whatever tools you decide to use, like an electronic voice recorder or a digital voice recorder or a magnetic recorder or even a video camera. A lot of the times people have found that their evidence will not match up. For instance, they'll catch something on a video recording, but they won't catch it on an audio recording. Now, at Bobby Mackey's, I have found some Class A EVPs, which is, in my opinion, these EVPs and other people who have examined them are clear, actually anomalous events or audio events. And I have a few of those that I've collected here and that are related to the site, in particular in the basement of the location where a lot of the activity that I've captured as far as EVP goes has occurred. So I'm going to go ahead and you guys can listen to that now, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The basement is where I experienced the most intense paranormal experiences. That's actually where I caught my first Class A EVP on a digital recorder. It was really one of the most bizarre experiences that I've ever had in my life. I had heard EVP, I had captured EVP, I had actually heard disembodied voices on different investigations in different locations. But never had I heard something quite like this. Just one of the most intelligent, sneaky, underhanded kind of messages that I had ever received from the dead. I'll go ahead and play that EVP here for you in just a second. Let me go ahead and describe the scenario. We had come to the end of our tour / investigation that Wanda Kay was conducting, and we were actually down in the basement in a part that was kind of totally in the back, kind of the farthest point away in the basement from the door, and we were all sitting around in chairs in a circle. We had decided to do an EVP experiment. Wanda had borrowed my EMF meter and was going around, walking around the circle, and she would put it next to us. And when she put it on the right side of us, nothing happened. But when she put it on the left side of us, it would always go off. And so it came my turn, and she came to me, and she put it next to me, and it went off. And I asked, "Who is to the left of me?" And then this is the response that I got. And that's the original version that I got as a direct response. I'll play that one more time. And now I'll play a cleaned up, quieter version where you might be able to hear the exact words. And then I'll play it one more time, just so you can really catch it. So yeah, that's what I heard. Wish they didn't know I was here. So the weird thing about that is that this voice, this disembodied voice, was either talking to itself or talking to someone else that was with it. And that is even more terrifying. After straining to hear into that terrifying vista of reality, it took me about another year and some months to get back to Bobby Mackey's to do a second investigation. I went there with a different team of people. We had varying results that were still very startling, and I got a direct response about the EVP that I was talking about in the last section. I've of course been completely consumed by this idea since I experienced this, and I captured this EVP. So it had been on my mind. I went back to the location and I asked who it was again. And in the next section here, I'm going to describe what happened when I asked that question. I'm sitting here going over the audio that I captured in the basement at Bobby Mackey's Country Music World on our last trip, our return trip there, while we were doing an EVP session in the basement. Now, last time I was there, I was down in the basement, and I asked the question, who is to the left of me? And the response that I captured was, I wish they didn't know that I was here. So on my return trip, I was down in the basement and I was asking who it was that had spoken to me and who they were talking to. Now I am going to go ahead and play the original EVP, and then I'm going to play what I believe is a response to my question, a kind of an indirect response, or a conversation that is again that seems to be being carried out by two different people that obviously aren't visible in the room, and it's a response and then a response to that. So I'll go ahead and play the original EVP, and then I'll play the one that I just captured, and I'll see what you guys think about it. Here we go.
I would like for the person who spoke about me, about our group, to come forward and give me their name.
There, did you hear that? It didn't bother me. I'll go ahead and play that again. And one more time. Pretty intense, right? Well, here's the response to that.
So here it is all together now. Okay, so pick that apart and go ahead and tell us what you think. Um, I've got a lot more stuff to go over. There's a lot of stuff that I found. So this is the first little piece, and check it out and let me know.
Although I've captured varying amounts and varying degrees of paranormal evidence, the particular EVP that I captured at Bobby Mackey's the first time that I went there with a handheld digital recorder, that I actually, that not only I heard, but the people that I was with heard as well, was pretty much what's cemented uh, the fact that EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, is real and that I have experienced it definitely. It's kind of hard to argue with that. There's a lot of things that could play into effect when you're doing things like electronic voice phenomenon and using all these different techniques. I mean, there's pareidolia. You can your brain will just get confused. It'll start looking for patterns. It'll start looking for words. And, anything that can help make sense of the noise. But sometimes it just is what it is, and that's what it is in this case. Now that we've talked about electronic voice phenomenon and some of the specific EVPs that I captured at Bobby Mackey's, I think we should talk about another form of ITC, or another ITC experiment that we conducted on the property. ITC stands for Instrumental Transcommunication. What that means is that you can use a device, electronic device, much like you would use a digital recorder to capture an EVP. You could use a radio or a TV or a Frank's box or a Shack Hack or something like that. And in my mind, it's all pretty much the same thing. And an earlier iteration of this would be consulting any type of an oracle before the advent of electronic devices. The same thing would count for a Ouija board. I really don't think there's very much of a difference between using a Ouija board or conducting an EVP session. I know that makes a lot of people angry in the paranormal community, but I don't really give a shit about that, because at the end of the day, it's kind of exactly the same thing. But in any case, one of the experiments that we did at Bobby Mackey's involved a small TV that we used as the medium, and a camera that we used as kind of a catalyst. And so what we did was we pointed the camera directly into the TV, and we created the strobing effect that happens when you do that and you focus in. And it also created the kind of infinite kaleidoscope effect.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
So here's the infinite feedback loop that you're looking for when you're setting up your video TV ITC experiment. It's pretty much just going to be this bizarre kind of kaleidoscope feedback loop. So then what you're going to do after that is to kind of pull in the focus until you get this strobing effect. And once you get the strobing effect, you can see you can get out, you can get in really deep in here, then you'll get more feedback, audio feedback usually, and you pull it back to something that you feel is like, I don't know, mesmerizing, I guess. So this is when I would say, hey, are there any spirits here who wish to communicate? Then, so something bizarre happened here that you may have noticed. Right when I asked the question, are there any spirits here that wish to communicate, my camera battery was drained and it switched from battery to auxiliary, and you can tell that by the sounds of the beeping and the chiming that occurred directly after I asked the question. Now, it was a little surprising for me. I didn't expect to have that happen, and as you can see, I kind of faded out and took a second to check out what was going on. This isn't an uncommon occurrence when doing or conducting EVP experiments or other experiments, like ITC experiments, EVP experiments, those types of things, that the potential energies or spirits around you drain batteries of your equipment, or just batteries that are laying around, or short out electrical devices. So it's not really, as bizarre as it is, it's not an uncommon thing when it comes to spirit communication. So that was definitely a surprise. I didn't expect to have that to happen. I just charged the battery. There's nothing wrong with the camera, and it's completely drained as far as the battery goes. Pretty bizarre. So here we are. We're just going to continue where we left off with the show already in progress. Thanks.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious.
The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves.
It's strobing into this infinite kaleidoscope effect. And you basically do the same thing that you would do in an EVP session, and you communicate with spirits or whatever. Just ask the question, state your intent, and see what happens.
Let us hear your voice through the voice recorder, or just give us an indication that you are here.
So basically, what we do, or what we did, was we would capture 30-second bursts at 33 frames per second. So then you end up with 990 frames. And so what you do after that is you go through that frame by frame and you see what you find. And we ended up finding some very interesting images. But it's important also to not go over maybe 30 seconds at a time while you're doing this experiment. Alright, so here's a few more of these ITC images that we captured at Bobby Mackey's Country Music World over a period of a couple investigations. You might see something in some of them, you might see nothing in all of them, but we've seen something in each of these. In any case, just take a look and, check it out.
Here we are in search of Pearl Bryan's grave. We've traveled all the way to Putnam County, to Greencastle, Indiana, to the Forest Hill Cemetery.
Are you recording that?
Yeah. Does anybody have pennies?
I don't have any pennies.
Do you pennies.
There's a bridge over there. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bridge.
So, seems like a pivotal point in finding the grave is the Civil War monument. So anybody that may see this footage, if you're coming out here to find this, you might want to start here. Did you find it? Yep. And so here we are at Pearl O'Brien's grave. It's an unadorned stone. Penny symbolically left to represent her missing head. And
represent her missing head.
his head's up. Oh, there's at least 9 pennies there.
So he's allowed to put a dime down and take 9 pennies, but I'm not.
I don't make up these rules.
Okay, so we found Pearl O'Brien's grave. What was it, east of the Civil War statue?
Yep.
Okay, you can see that statue from here. If you get up to the hill and you're facing the north side of the statue, he just head east from that statue. And it's probably only about, what, 200 feet away? About 200 feet, 200-300 feet away. So.
A stone's throw, if you will.